topwater flats fishing. It's something I get asked time and time again. Like, how do I even get started? A lot of people out there seeing these guys on social media catching absolute horse of a fish on the flats, especially on topwater lures. But unfortunately, there is a bit of a secret to the madness, so I'll be running through absolutely everything, spilling the beans on what gear, what lures, what locations to be fishing for, and what you're supposed to be looking for on the flats to be able to find and locate those trophy fish such as whiting, brim, and flathead, and a whole bunch of other species that are around our Fraser Coast area. So make sure you guys tune in, and I'll see you guys down at the shop. G'day guys, Jared here, and welcome back to the Fraser Coast Outdoors YouTube channel. So today I'll be taking you inside and running through different things for chasing topwater whiting and a few other species on the flat. So there's no point me standing here any much longer. Come on in and we'll go in. Well, I tell you what, there's nothing more daunting than walking into a fishing shop and just seeing the amount of lures on shelf. You've got topwater lures, you've got spinner baits, you've got big hard bodies for barra, and the mountain loads of soft plastics. And everyone asks me the same question every day: where do I even start? So hopefully today I'll be able to give you some tips and secrets to be able to choosing what lures for what conditions on what day, be able to target some big fish on the flats on topwater. So go find a little nook and we'll sit down and run through a couple things. Alright guys, managed to find myself a bit of a quiet spot. Still going to be a little bit loud though. Unfortunately, got a few boat jobs going outside, but I'll try my best to see what I can do. Alright, so in front of me is probably what I would start off as a basic sort of setup. Range from, we'll go through braid, leader, heaps of different types of lures, a few techniques to increase your hookup rate, as well as a few reels and also what rods to choose, because there's just a mountain load of gear and it can be pretty daunting at times. As I know when I first started fishing for topwater whiting, flathead and that sort of stuff, there's just so much and you just don't know. Yeah, sorry about that guys. We just had an earthquake, which is really unexpected. Funny timing to happen when I was recording, but anyway, kind of lost track where I was going at. Yeah, never been through an earthquake before, so this is something different. Alright, so back to what we were talking about. I'll be running through different braid to be using. Particularly, we'll be talking about 8-strand, is my preference. Different lengths of leader as well as the poundage. Different types of lures, got a bunch of different styles here and different ways to rig them as well to increase your bite chance. And we're running through some reels and some rods too to be able to get the perfect setup within your budget as well. So without further ado, let's kick it off. So obviously where we're starting off with, we've got to start with the reels and the rods. You know, every setup starts with that, so you can tailor to whatever you're going to be fishing with. So depending on what your setup is going to be, if you're going to have an allocated topwater setup on the flats, or if you're going to have just a general all-rounder, I'll probably be sticking with between a 2 to 4 kilo to 3 to 6, depending on if you're going more to flathead. That heavier weight rating just allows you to be able to obviously handle those bigger flathead at times, because I've tell you what, I've hooked some really big flathead in ankle deep water. I mean, like 80 centimeters plus. They'll be sitting real shallow. It's wherever the whiting are going, they'll be sitting. So if you're catching whiting in shallow water, pays to be careful having lighter leader that some people tend to like to throw. I'll be beefing that up to that little bit heavier because you are working the lure out of the water. So having that heavier leader is not really that big of an issue. So you'll obviously have that bit of reassurance and you're going to be able to land that big flathead if you decide to pick up your lure too. So back to the rods. Honestly, there is plenty of good rods in every sort of range of budget. So I brought out a couple of my favourites here, and I brought my one I tend to throw around with at the moment. So I'll start off with an NS Ant rod. So we've got the NS Exalt, and this is a brim rated rod. So this one is quite light to what I recommend, but if you are looking for something in a really good cheap budget range, this guy's priced at $99, and it has a nice solid tip, not too bendy, so this is perfect for throwing out little lures, and you know, it's able to put up a good hook set, because the fish tend to slash at your lure, and you make sure when they do pick them up, you do set the hook properly on them. This is more what I call tailored to top water fishing, especially for whiting, because it is that 1 to 3 kilo range. I would be a bit nervous throwing around if there was some flooded in the area, but you can obviously still land them as long as you fight the fish well, have a little bit heavier leader, and just let the drag do all your work. This guy is 2-piece as well, so a lot of people do like these guys, because one, 99 bucks, can't complain about that, and two-piece, folds up in the back of your car, throw it in your boot, passenger seat, it's ready to travel anywhere, because with this style of fishing, you need to be very mobile. Have a backpack on, or just a handful of lures in the pocket, or sometimes I put them on my hat. Don't recommend sometimes, because you can hook yourself. But good with this guy, you can have your reel on that, and you can clip it on the side of your backpack. Then you've got both hands free. So, perfect little rod if you're wanting to starting out and you've got a few gear already at home and you just want to give top water whiting fishing a go. You can pair this up with some cheaper reels, like got a couple of reels here. If you're looking for something starting off with, just tailored for lure fishing, you could be flathead, brim, whiting, you know, grunter, whatever not. Can't go wrong with the old Shimano Sedona. This guy's perfect, it's about that $149 range. You are paying for some quality here. Perfect for throwing little lures around, but this is also good for freshwater as well, like bass. You know, I've used this in the past for bass, absolute treat. So it's perfect to pair it up with this style of rod. Nice light combo, perfect for throwing lures around all day, and it's not tiresome either. Especially when there's come fishing, you'll be working a certain technique, and it is very constant. So you will get tired over time. So it pays to have gear that is a little bit lighter, so you can obviously over time, because you could be out there for hours catching fish, and doing what we call walking the dog. And the term is patting your head, rubbing your tummy. You're casting out, you're constantly twitching the rod, keeping the lure moving, and it's a steady retrieve. So it's very active and it is very tiresome at the end of the day. So pays to when you're looking at gear, make your setup, feel how comfortable it is. If you're thinking it's a bit weighty now, after about 4 or 5 hours, it will be really heavy. So when it comes to fishing, try to make it as enjoyable as you can. So have a look at the gear you're going to be getting, and make sure it's lightweight for this style of stuff. So that's what I recommend as a starter. But if not, if you wanted to try something a bit more fancy, probably stepping up to these sort of guys, we're going to the more of a universal style. So this will be like your 2 to 4, 3 to 6 kilo range. So I'm sure everyone's heard of Shimano Raiders. They've been around for donkey's years, and for good reason. Absolute beautiful rod here. This one is 1-piece, but you can get 2-piece options. So this guy, I believe, is a 1 to 4 kilos. So sort of roughly between that 2 to 4 kilo range, but you can throw a lot of lures. It's a Shimano Raider Brim Spin. It's a 7'2", so it's perfect for this style of fishing, because you want at least a 6'6", preferably something over 7 foot, just be able to have that cast distance, because on the flats you want to be prioritizing casting length. Have a 7-foot rod, I recommend, and having the wind at your back, so you can cast those little topwater lures like these little sugar pens out into the sunset. Because when it comes to flats fishing, for any style of fishing, I like to have an invisible circle around you, what we call the dead zone. So where you are in the middle of the circle, you're going to have probably about a 4 meter to 5 meter area around you, all the way around you, that I call the dead zone. So what happens is, when you're moving through the water, you're making noise and you're scaring off little bits of prawn, bait fish and that sort of stuff, which is obviously scaring away the other fish like whiting, flathead and that sort of stuff. And once a fish is scared, it's 9 times out of 10 it's shut down, it's not going to eat. So with having a longer rod and having that wind at your back and throwing these light little lures, you're getting past those spooked fish. So you're going fish to untouched fish areas where you haven't gone through, and that's what what they're in their zone. So they haven't been disturbed. They're going about their day, finding food, finding their bottom, and just being completely natural. And that's when they're going to be more willing to eat a lure. Because once you spook the fish, they take off a million miles an hour. They're not going to eat. Trust me, tried that. They're not going to eat. So it pays to have a longer rod, use the wind at your back, and make sure, number one tip when picking a rod as well, mentioned it before about having a stiff tip, but a stiff tip is probably another real key thing to pick on, because if you've got a glass tip, it's very wobbly and you're not able to ping those little lures out, having the stiffer tip, it has a quicker reaction time. So you actually be able to almost flick it out, and it has that extra propulsion for casting those little lures. So 3 things when it comes to casting distance: obviously length, stiffer tip, so graphite rods is probably the key thing to go with, and having the wind at your back. So all those 3 little factors will help you cast at your maximum distance and get to those untouched areas. So moving on to the next one, we've actually got a new one that's come out after from TT. So we have the TT Black Mamba. So flash looking rod, retails about $199. Yeah, forgot to mention as well that Shimano Raider is retailing about $149. But back to the Black Mamba, $199. Beautiful rod here. It's pretty slick looking in my opinion, with all the chrome and all the nice black. So it's nice clean looking rod. Nice little grip here with a nice segmented butt to back to your grip again. So this is part of your blank as well, so you can have a bit more feeling of your rod if you're fishing like on soft plastics and that sort of stuff. And that's the thing with these last rods, you can fish whatever you want with them. This is a more of a tailored pick to a bit of everything. This is my preferred style. Having that 2 to 4 kilo range just allows me on the day, they're not biting top water, switch to a soft plastic, switch to a little dive biting crankbait or a jerk bait, and mix match, see what happens. But you just have the versatility where you can do that. So it's very key when you're picking up a rod to think what you're going to be doing with it. If you want a tailor rod just for top water lures, by all means, go that little bit lighter just for that. But if you want something that you're going to buy one rod that's going to do a few different jobs, 2 to 4 kilo, 2,500, or even a 3,000 if you're going after slightly bigger fish like grunter and even small jewfish or mangrove jack, you can have that beefier line to be able to tailor to that. So this one is a 2 to 4 kilo, and this one is one piece, but it is also the 7 foot range. So absolutely perfect for throwing those little lures, as well as super stiff tip. They designed these guys for lure fishing in mind. There's 3 different types in the range. You've got the copperhead, I believe it's red belly, and you've got the Black Mamba, which is the high end one. So they've got a few different price ranges. So if you're looking at this one, you're like, I want something a bit more lower in price, they've got a guy for you as well. So great looking rod, as well as great action on it, nice and stiff, perfect for top water fishing. But I'll bring out my rod that I tend to use. You probably would have seen it in the video where I was fishing on top water whiting, and also caught those nice flathead too. Handles very perfectly good. So I've got a Shimano Zodius paired up with a Shimano Vanford. So the reason why I picked this up is a little bit heavier, because I do prefer a universal style combo. So this guy is a 3 to 6 kilo 7 foot rod. It is one piece. I personally prefer one piece just for the fighting action, but some people obviously prefer the ease of transport of having a 2 piece. And I do have a 3000 size Vanford, just because universal style fishing, one day I could be throwing top water lures like this little Nomad Dartwing here, or I could be also throwing squidgy wrigglers for brim. I could be throwing bigger jerk baits for flathead, or even bigger paddle tails or even at times there's a few spots around Fraser Coast area where you do get goldens on the, like good sized goldens on the flat, and also giant herring. So I am running 8-pound braid, about 300 meters of it, which sounds a lot, but with that universal style stick, you do get goldens and you do get giant herring. It just allows me to have that bit of reinsurance where I can let the fish run and tire itself out. Because when you're fishing on the flats, you'll be out in knee-deep water. You've got no land to actually land the fish. You've got to pick it up yourself. So you make sure you want to bring the fish in tired. You don't want to bring it in green, because obviously with the lure hanging out its mouth, it could get messy and you could hurt yourself and get yourself pinned. Or even worse, could lose the fish. So it pays to have a little bit line on your reel, so about 150 to 300 meters, depending on what poundage obviously and what reel you go with. Just allows you to have that bit of run time, because you just never know around here what's actually going to climb over your lure. Yeah, Taylor, Trevally, whatever not, more than happy to pick up a little whiting lure. So it pays to just think about the area you're going fishing, and just think about the species that will be inhabiting it, and have a stick where you can target whiting, but you can also target them too. Because there's nothing worse when you go out there and you've picked out a species you want to go target, and then you go out there and next minute you see a bunch of tailor hitting the surface and you can't fish through them because you're fishing too light, because tailor got gnarly teeth and you can have that heavier leader on this rod. But yeah, that's probably it when it comes to combos. I'll go a bit more over the reels in a second. So when picking a reel for your rod, between that 2500 to 3000 size I just said before, but there's hundreds of brands out on the market, and there's 100 different styles. But my personal pick, I prefer Shimano. It's always been a bit of a Shimano guy, and as well as they've got plenty of options ranging from $54 if you want to go super budget friendly, and you can go all the way up to $500 or even more if you wanted to. So they've got something in anyone's price range. Just picked out a couple of my personal favorites. Obviously, I really like the Bamford. It's got what they call a CI4 construction, which is a super lightweight but rigid, like graphite sort of body, graphite / plastic body. Super lightweight, super strong, handles out the big fish too, because not a few people too that run the Bamford 3000s or even Stradic 3000s for threads and salmon. So these guys can handle the big weights, but at the same time handle the small stuff too. So got the Shimano Stradic here. I've picked out the 2000 size, either 2000, 2500 or even a 3K. Perfect little reel. These roughly retail about $379 or less. And then we've also got the Shimano Sedona, which I mentioned before, which is about that $149 range. These guys come in massive different sizes, even smaller, but I prefer to go that 2500 size to a 3K in these guys, just to have that, because they've got a bit of a shallower spool compared to the Bamfords, which have a bit deeper, as well as the Stradics. But when fishing with all these guys, and with your rods and reels, braid is the key. So there's heaps of different braids on the market. Like I've picked out some of my favorites. You've got the Sunline, you got the Sunline here, and you've got the Shimano here too, as well as the Australian-made Tasline, which is super thin. And the main thing with all these guys, what they have in common is what they call a 8-carrier braid. So an 8-carrier braid to any other braid is basically there's 8 strands to make the one coil of braid. So that just means it's a lot thinner and it's able to cast through your guides a lot easier, especially when you're throwing little topwater lures. As well as obviously you can fit a lot more line on your reel for a heavier breaking strain. So it works out a lot better when it comes to lure fishing. But there's also a 4-carrier braid on the market, which is it's more tailored towards abrasion resistance. So that's more better suited for barramundi fishing in the timber, mangrove jack, cod, Australian bass even as well. But I prefer the 8-carrier for Australian bass because I'm throwing quite light lures too. So when it comes to flats fishing, go the 8-carrier is what I recommend. Allows you to get that more casting distance with the wind. As well as it's just a lot harder for the fish to see. Even though your line's out of the water, it just allows you to obviously have that thinner, so it's a little bit more subtle presentation for your lures. So coming down from obviously your main line, which is braid, you're going to be picking a leader. Don't be afraid to go heavier with your leader, because if you're fishing top water especially, we're doing what we call patting your head, rubbing your tummy technique. So you'll be casting out, and as soon as your lure lands, twitch, 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 getting the lure to go side to side, or you get it to pop, and you're whining slow at the same time. So you'll be constantly going, and your line and leader will be up and out of the water. So the fish are not going to have time to see it. It's more of a reaction bite out of anything. So you can go heavier, but I know some people, they prefer to go lighter, like the 8 pound, and also what I prefer is the 12 pound. That's what I find is usually a good in between. You got the platypus hard armor tough leader, which is a bit more abrasion resistant, especially because when you get flooded on the flats, they do get some gnarly teeth. I've caught flooded up to 80 centimeters on top water lures by accident when fishing these little small stuff. So just having that 12 pound makes me a bit more comfortable throwing that sort of stuff if I do hook a good fish. But there's stacks of different brands in the market. Everyone has their personal picks. Hard Armor is one of my personal picks, as well as the FC Rock. I'm sure everyone's heard of these guys. They got stacks of different poundages, but I like that 12 pound in that sort of stuff, because at the same time you could be fishing for whiting, and then the next week you're fishing for bass. Perfect stuff for bass, perfect stuff for flathead, brim, grunter. So it just gives you, when you're buying this stuff, you're not segregating any other species as well, so you don't have to go out there and buy as much. You've got the universal use of this sort of stuff. This is all this gear I'm running through here is perfect for any species in the estuary. So it just allows you to have that, basically your tool in the toolbox, to be able to catch anything. All right, so when it comes to these guys joining your main line to your leader, heaps of different knots you can do. I'm a bit of a knot guy. I'm very particular on what I tie. It's always been a thing for me, and for good reason. I've had a few times where the fish have busted off. So we've got what we call a FG knot on that guy. It might be a bit hard to see, but we've got a FG knot, which is probably the best knot on the market. Just allows you to have nearly 100% breaking strength. So basically with that guy, it is cross weaved over the braid, and then a bunch of half hitches and a finish on the end, just to be able to keep it nice and snug. But if you're just starting off, and obviously you're out in the water and you couldn't be bothered tying it, because it does take a bit of time to tie an FG. Another real good one, simple and easy, is a double uni knot joining braid. Super easy, 2 uni knots, they snell down together, and the harder the pull, the fish pulls or you pull, the harder the 2 knots come together and push up against each other. It is a little bit more of a bulkier knot, that's why I prefer the FG knot, but if you're just out in the water, getting started, it's a perfect knot to start off with, and then when you get a bit of spare time at home, practice a few different knots. There's also a Albright, which is another real good one too. Simple, easy, and it's a little bit tighter. So those are probably the 3 knots I would be doing when it comes to joining braid to your leader. Because the one thing I see a lot of people make mistakes with is when fishing with braid, they tie braid straight to the lure. Do not do that. You're going to go through a lot of braid real quick doing that. Having the leader as well allows the fish not to see your line as much as well. As well as if you're fishing in structure, I'd rather be cutting off leader than cutting off braid at the end of the day. So moving on from your lines, we'll jump onto the main meat and potatoes of this, is the lures. I can tell you what, there's hundreds of lures on the market. I can tell you nearly all of them do work. It's just got to find out the right time, the right conditions, and obviously to the right species as well. So it's very hard to actually pick out one on the day, because obviously this one here, for instance, looks absolutely killer on the fish. But the problem is, on a real rainy day, water's all dirty, it's a see-through lure. It's harder for the fish to actually see, and you're going to miss a lot more fish. Well, compared to something like I've got over here on my rod, which is a Nomad Dartwing in the 90mm size, but it's in a near charcoal grey black solid colour. This would be better in dirty water or low light conditions. So there is heaps of different stuff to pick out when it comes to lures, but generally the see-through colours when it comes to whiting in particular seems to outweigh the solid colours. I would pick the solid colours in the late afternoon, or if it's been raining for the last couple of days and I'll get the fish on the clear day after. But if you're fishing midday like everyone else is, go for your real see-through colours. Like we've got the sugar pens here, which these guys are what we call the walk the dog style lures. Perfect little lure to throw around in super calm conditions. I can't stress this enough. If there is, it's what we call pancake conditions. The water's absolutely flat. Throw around just your regular walk the dog sugar pen. Another good one we've also got is the Lucky Craft Sammy. The reason why I throw these around in super calm conditions is because if there is a little bit of wind and there's a little bit of chop, these guys won't work as properly. They will come out of the water, and that's the main thing with this fishing. You want to keep consistency and you want the lure to be working all the way. Main thing is patting your head, rubbing your tummy technique. So cast out, tick, 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 and just a slow one at the same time, and keep that consistency, and you get these guys going back and forward. Adjust your speed. Some days the whiting prefer quicker speed, some days it's a bit lower speed. So, but it's all about keeping it moving, and the key thing, don't stop. If you get a hit, don't stop at all, especially if you know it's a whiting. And the way to tell between different species, I'll call the three main factors. We've got whiting, brim, and flathead. So whiting is quite a slashing action. They'll come up and slap the water and side cut the lure or anything like that. While a brim sounds more like a kissing net sound. So they'll come up and try to suck your lure off the surface, and they'll be a lot more subtle. While a big old flathead or any flathead will come up and boof it like a barrel. It's a very solid noise. I play a couple on the wrong hand side. There we go. There we go. Got some video of flathead, and I think I've got one of whiting as well. But it's all about identifying the hit. So if it's a flathead, if you don't hook the fish, they'll drop straight back down to the bottom again, and you can cast repeatedly over the top of them. I had that happen in the last video where first cast he come up and boofed it. I knew he would drop back down to the bottom because I didn't set the hooks into him. So I proceeded to cast in the same area where he was, and he came back and ate the lure. So, but with a whiting, they'll have multiple goes at and the one retrieved, as long as you keep that same action they hit on and you don't stop, because with whiting, they are more of a reaction bite when it comes to topwater lures. So keep the lure moving, keep the action, keep the speed, and they'll come out and have multiple hits at a time. And usually what happens is, if you've got one whiting having a go at it, his other friends will come and join it, and it'll be a bit of a competition between all of them, and they'll try to muscle each other out of the way and try to beat each other at the lure. So it's good when one happens, because multiple will happen. While with brim, you find it more on a rocky bottom or broken up with oysters and stuff like that around on the sandbanks. A few areas around here that's like that. Like in the last video I did, there was a couple of spots there that have brim usually, and a couple of weeks later I ended up catching a few brim myself that day. But walk the dogs, calm, clear days. I'll move over to another popular style. We've got your poppers. So another one from Bass Day, they've got the Sugar Splash, which these guys have come out pretty relatively new. I think it was either 2024 or 2023. They went after with these guys, and I could clearly see why. So these guys are a hybrid. So they are your traditional style poppers, so you can pop, stop, pop, stop, pop, stop. But if you get your rod up nice and high, like I said with the normal walk the dogs, patting your head, rub your tummy technique, constant action, they will walk the dog. And the good thing about these guys, when it's this style of fishing, your main thing you're trying to represent is a prawn. If you go out there and you'll just watch long enough on after a bit of rain or near the mangroves, you'll see prawns getting around and you'll see them start flicking. And that's what the whiting, bream and flathead are basically you're trying to represent to them. And that's what they're trying to eat. So these guys are really good after the rain. And as well as if the conditions are a little bit rougher, so if there's a bit more wind and it's causing a bit more ripples in the water, and the walk the dogs are not working and they're blowing out or whatnot, switch to a popper because they will keep the head in the water when it pops, so you get a constant action. That is the main thing, is having a constant action when working all of these lures, and just pay attention on the conditions of the day and then sort of pick your lure towards that condition. Same thing with color. You can use your solid colors, you can use your bright see-throughs like this one here. This is like what I call a party color. It's got a big pink head on it and then a clean, clear body with lots of glitter and a bit of green on the back. Does quite nicely. And then we just got the straight green one here, which I would probably throw a bit more around when there's prawns around. Very good color too. Same with the sugar pens as well. This is a lot bigger size, but don't be afraid to throw a little bit bigger too. In the video, I was throwing around the Darkwing 90 in that solid dark color. This is one here I just got in the box. It's 90mm size. Most people wouldn't expect to throw that for whiting, but they will eat it. They will have a go at it, because what I think I figured out is they will hit it, what you're representing as a prawn, they will hit it anyway just to rip out a chunk out of them, and that's their feet. So it could be their legs, it could be just a part of their body, their shell or tail or whatnot, but they'll still have a go at it just to get a bite out of the cake. So these bigger lures will still catch fish, especially some of the smaller stuff. So don't be afraid to throw these around, as well as big flathead love obviously bigger lures. So that's also awesome cast for flathead, represents a little garfish or anything like that, or a little potty mullet. Awesome. So don't be afraid to throw bigger lures. If you throw around these smaller, like your smaller 70mm Darkwings, or you throw around the smaller sugar pens and you're not getting any bites, try upsizing a little bit and see how that goes. Same sort of lure type. So clear days, calm days, go to the walk the dogs. A little bit rougher days, go to your poppers. Same thing with colours. Bright and sunny, goes nice and see-through. Late in the afternoon or dirtier water, go to your more dark and solid colours to cast a silhouette so the fish know what to hit. So one thing also I'll touch basis on with all these lures, you've probably noticed them with a few of these ones I've my own here. They've all what we got called stinger hooks in the back of them. So you can see the bit of tensely stuff hanging off the back of them. And they've got little circle hooks or just little assist hooks to help increase your hookup rate. So I brought some of my own in. You can make your own, plenty of companies make them. Personally, I like the TT ones. They come with a bit of tensile, and they just increase your hookup rate tremendously, especially with whiting, because they are such an aggressive hit when they do, they slash at it. Any bit of hook penetration you can get, take it. So these guys are absolutely awesome at be able to help you sting those whiting, because normally what happens is they'll come up and slash at it and the sting hook will come swing around and hit inside the face. So these guys just help with the hookup ratio, as well as with flathead. They can be quite aggressive when they do the head shakes on top of the water, especially in that shallow country. And that just helps you obviously keep the lure pinned in the corner of their mouth. A little trick too I found over time when using stinger hooks. Normally the tinsel, don't think I've trimmed this one, no. So you can notice the difference between the two bits of tinsel. I have trimmed the one on my lure. So I usually trim it just under that. They usually got one stinger hook here that's lower than the top one. And I trimmed the tinsel to the bottom of the bottom hook. It just allows the fish not to have, if they come up like a brim, they might come up and just grab the bottom of that tinsel, just send it in the water if you're doing a pause. So it just allows me to have, obviously, the hook point is closer towards what they're biting. It's the last thing they'll bite. Also the first thing they can actually bite if they're doing a real subtle bite. And it just allows me to have, if I do get a hit, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a hookup or a bite. So that is probably the number one thing. And you can see with a couple of these guys, I've got different setups when it comes to those sting hooks. With this normal sugar pen, I've just got the treble at the front and stinger hook at the back. I know some people like to take out the front treble and also put stingers so they can have 2 sets of stingers. But I like that treble hook just for a bit of reinsurance if I do get a flathead or something bigger. But with this one here, I've still got both trebles But I've also got the sting hooks. I think on this day where I was fishing these guys, I noticing I was missing a lot of bites. They were really subtle. And what I did was, just to get, when I'm retrieving it, to get the back end of the lure hanging down a bit more. So when the fish come up and bites it, they're more likely to bite the middle of the lure. So that's obviously put yourself with more hook points, and it just obviously allows me to actually connect to more fish. So there is a little bit of modification when it comes to this stuff, but if you're just starting off, you can still catch fish on just both trebles. You don't have to have stinger hooks. But I found in my time on the water, just having those stinger hooks, I've found more hookup ratios just with how I'd retrieve my lures. But most of the time, you see plenty of YouTube videos of people working topwater lures. 9 times out of 10, they take the back treble off and they just put some assist hooks on and they just keep the front treble. Perfect round all. And these little TT guys, they come with 2 sets in them. So you get 2 hooks in one set with a ring, and then you get another set there with 2 hooks and same stuff. Different colors. I just go with orange because I think that's just the most prawny looking color. Obviously you can get green, you can get black, you can get chartreuse green, red, yellow, whatever not, or you can even make your own. So some people are a bit more fancy with it. They like to pick the color of their tinsel towards their lure. I find it doesn't make too much of a difference, but if you're, choosing on the days where it's a bit more tougher, by all means give it a go. But I usually just stick to orange. It works out pretty well. Alright, so we've covered lures. I'll quickly mention a few times the dart wing range. These are pretty new at the moment. They're from Nomad Design, so the smaller one has been out for a while, but my personal pick is the 90mm. These are brand new to the market, and that last video I was just throwing them because on the day I had the darker color one, which I'll bring up to the camera now. I had the darker color one because a couple of days before I recorded that, I noticed there was rain, so the water was a bit discolored when I was down there. So picked that guy up, and with this guy it's similar to the Sugar Splash because it was a little bit rough with a bit more wind. So I could have thrown a Sugar Splash if I wanted to, if I had a darker color, but I decided to pick up the Nomad, which I didn't. I'm very pleased to throw because that was my first time using them. And they're a bit of a hybrid too, like the Sugar Splash I was mentioning. So you can either do walk the dog with them, or you can do a pop. And I'll show you a bit of on the corner here, of a bit of recording of it working. So you can pop them, you can walk the dog, rub your head, pat your head, rub your tummy technique. And also you do like a slide technique, which is a hybrid between the two. So with these guys, they've got wings on the side. And if you do sort of a pop and like walk the dog style, they sort of slide and that throws the water, which I think on the day, a bit of that rain, it was a bit of a warmer day that day, that was just before winter. There was some prawns getting around. So, and they were flicking, and that flicking noise or the splashing noise, this lot represented to the T. So that's why I had 10 bites. And I think about 80% of them were hookups and retrieved. So everything eats them. Got flooded on that day, got whiting, and this lure's got little teeth marks just to prove it because I've caught Taylor on them too now. Awesome fun. So that's probably what I would pick out of them. But by all means, if you've got a favourite lure, if you've been doing this for a while, up to you. Obviously different areas work in different ways, different bait fish profiles, different crustacean profiles, different water clarity, depth. Obviously there's a lot of stuff to go through, but if you're wanting the basics, have a clear one, have a walk the dog style lure, have a popper, and have a dark coloured lure, and have some assist hooks if you wanted some extra bite and also attractants as well. If you just want to start off with, that is the ultimate lure setup you can go with. You can obviously buy hundreds of lures, but if I had to start off with, I've had to start brand new today, walk into the shop and go buy something, I would buy a little sugar pen or a Sammy in this clear colour. Then I would buy either a Nomad Dartwing or even the Sugar Splash from Sugar Pen. And then I would probably, out of one of them, I would pick also a dark coloured one. I'll probably go with the Nomad Dartwing just because I've seen how it works, just because it is that universal style lure where you can pop and also can do a walk the dog. So I had to pick one of these guys, sugar pens, sugar splashes, and a dart wing. Perfect all-rounder to get you started. So now we've got all the gear. So we've got rod, reel, line, leader, lures. Now you got to pick where you're going. So when looking for a particular feeding ground for whiting, brim, flathead, obviously a little bit different between them, but the generic two I would find most easy to find is whiting and flathead. They normally hunt in the same ground together because flathead usually feed off whiting, and obviously where there's whiting, there's flathead. So I'm particularly looking for obviously a tidal sand flat that has either a slight drop off into a current, or we've got a sand bank with a lot of tidal movement and it has either broken ground, so it has some slight sand ridges in the bottom, or what we call weed patches. So you've got shallow ground and there's just clumps of weed patch growing in the ground, and then there's open sand, then weed patch and sand, weed patch and sand, because the flathead will be sitting in the sand and the whiting will go through the, the flathead will be sitting in the weed patch, and the whiting will be going through the sand patches, navigating right through, waiting for, and the flathead will be sitting in the weed on the edge of it, waiting for a whiting to wander too close and you'll come up and woof them. But there's a lot of country that is like that. But the thing when you're looking for is when you're looking at the sand, when you're walking through it, make sure it's not hard sand. You're looking for soft, muddy stuff, because the whiting like to actually get in there, and we're not feeding on prawns. They're digging in the sand looking for yabbies. And if it's hard sand, yabbies can't burrow into it, so you won't find the whiting. You find the bait, you find the fish. So find that nice, soft, bit sandy, muddy mix, and look around. If you see little indivets and crevices in the ground, or you see yabby holes, that means whiting obviously been digging them out, and there's obviously yabbies there. After all that, the main thing you're looking for is muddy bottom with a bit of weed or coming off to a drop off, so a sandy, muddy mix usually holds the fish. So another thing to be looking for as well as the bait. So you find the yabbies, like I mentioned before, find the yabbies. Once you find the whiting, you'll find your flathead. So when fishing that ground, you'll find both of them together. But brim, on the other hand, you can find them on the sand flats, same with whiting, eating up yabbies and stuff like that, but they're more likely to be found where there's a bit of oyster or a bit of rock mixed around the area. Like the spot I was fishing, there was little clumps of rock with a bit of oyster and whatnot hanging off it. And a couple of weeks later, I found some brim hanging around there, and I ended up catching them on the sugar splash. You would have seen in the intro where I had a brim in my hand with this guy at his gob. And I then got him just pinned on the back treble, and, the back stinger hooks, and the front treble come around and swung and got him in the face. So take aware of where you're actually fishing. What I recommend do is get yourself a good pair of polarized sunnies, and just stop and stand there for like 5 minutes and just pan around, have a look and see what's going on. Can make a massive difference on your day between a donut day and catching a nice feed of fish. So that's pretty much it. Main thing is obviously pick your setup, nice light setup, bit of 8 to 10 pound braid, or you can even go 15 if you wanted to. Bit of light leader, 12 pound, 8 pound, it's up to you. Pick a couple lures, walk the dog, popper, see-through colours and a dark colour, perfect for everyday conditions. Have that paired up with some sting hooks to increase your hookup ratio. And then with your rods, obviously, nice 2500 to 3K, or you can go to even a 2000 size reel. Any sort of price range that suits you guys. The main thing is getting out there and actually having a go at it, because there's nothing more fun. Even if you don't catch a fish that day, it's a nice space to be out to anyway. But the main thing is obviously being out there in the outdoors and just having a good time. You know, you never know, could catch a big fish, or you never know, it could be one of those donut days, but there's no place where you would rather be. I can tell you what, there's nothing more calming out there, being on the flats by yourself and just having a boatload of fun. Like I said before, pair of polo sunnies, backpack I recommend, bit of food, bit of water, and techniques, mate, remember, consistent action, don't stop. Pat your head, rub the tummy, cast your lure out. Constant slow wind, constant walk the dog, tipping your tip. Get your lure basically throwing on the slack each side, and make sure you cover ground. Don't just stay in the one spot. Walk out there, walk along the bank if you're fishing somewhere a bit deeper. Cover ground, because these fish, what we call nomad fish, they will move as the tide goes out. Fishing run at tide seems to be the best for me. Obviously different systems will be different, but the draining of the flats seems to be what most likely the fish are eating, especially flatted. They'll wait for the whiting to drift off where they're doing, because the water gets too shallow, and they'll be sitting there ambushing them. Alright, that's pretty much it from me today, guys. If you guys wanting any information at all, or any more info of what I've explained to you today, more than welcome to drop a comment below, or come see me and the team down at 123 Lennox Street at Fraser Coast Outdoors. And I'll be able to put you up, guys, with some setups and some lures and some recommendations on the conditions at the time, because it does differentiate a little bit, but not too much. This is pretty much the basics, I would say, to start off with, and this is how I got started to start catching some good fish. But that's pretty much it, guys. So wishing you the best of luck, tight lines, and I'll talk to you guys later. Cheers, guys.